Hey everyone, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scott C Business, and today we're here with Matt Aaron, who has a ton of things going on. He's got Crazy Calm. He's involved in the Bitcoin Cash House. He ran the Bitcoin.com podcast for almost 2 years, racking up 231 episodes. So we have a lot to dive into here. I think first, it'll be best to start off with Crazy Calm and work our way through these. But before we jump into that, do you just want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. I mean, you did a pretty good job there on the introduction. I've been doing all sorts of things, businesses, projects, for the last 15 years. I got into crypto in 2000 and really 2017 was where I really got fully into it and started playing around and yeah, I mean, joined Bitcoin.com and launching their podcast network and then doing stuff in Latin America. Have really opened my eyes to a lot of things. And that's why I'm here today, because I realized when I was at Bitcoin.com that there's a lot of talk about the usefulness of cryptocurrency for both high-risk banking industries and what we'll talk about later, high-risk countries. Everyone says, banking the unbanked, right? And they're catchy slogans, but going in and trying to figure out how that all works and understanding the roadblocks of doing that. So I've become a crypto-friendly business and advocate for cryptocurrency in the cannabis sector, which is a high-risk banking industry where you have in California, CFOs driving around with $1 million of cash. And we launched a CBD coffee company. It's CBD instant coffee named Crazy Calm. And we've had well over $1,000 worth of cryptocurrency orders so far. I mean, it's still a fraction of total sales, but we expect to continue using cryptocurrency because of a simple thing, Scott, is it's very hard to have payment processing if you're selling cannabis-related products. And any day, and this has happened to other people in the industry, our payment processing with Visa and MasterCard, which is already at very high rates, by the way, could be shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did I was going to say, what does your average day look like now? But I don't know how relevant that would be to when you were kind of in the mix of all of the things you were doing back with Bitcoin.com and everything. But I guess what does your day look like now, and what was it like when you were doing podcasts like every other day and interviewing all these people?
Yeah, so I still do a little bit of content creation today. So I'm coming on this podcast to share with your community, and I interview people in the cannabis sector as well, but a lot of just product formulation, calling wholesale stores, CBD and vape shops across the US. That's the majority of my time. Bitcoin.com was really interesting. I mean, I was putting out 3 to 4 episodes per week. As you know, Scott, like it's a lot of content. We had an editor, a social media person just for the podcast, but producing and scheduling and then preparing for the interviews. Sometimes I'd have authors on there, so I'd make sure to read their books or just listen to old interviews. Publishing 3 to 4 episodes a week definitely kept me quite busy.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what was the kind of like original motivation and also how did you come up with the name for Crazy Calm? And what was the original motivation there for starting it and forming that business?
Sure. So my original motivation, I started drinking CBD coffee about a year ago, maybe like January of 2019, and I was brewing it. I found a ground coffee version, but I'm someone that travels a lot. I'm in Mexico right now. I move around, and I wanted a instant version. I don't know if you're familiar with Four Sigmatic, but they've been like Joe Rogan and they sponsor like Tim Ferriss podcast. But they do like instant like mushroom coffee, like not like psychedelic mushrooms, but
that's what I thought.
The mental performance mushrooms for mental performance and immune system. Anyway, so Four Sigmatic is a very interesting company, and I saw what they were doing with mushrooms, and I was like, wow, there is no CBD instant coffee product on the market, and so just kind of scratched my own itch, and took 6 months to formulate and get it produced, but we launched at the end of December.
Awesome. So
and the name Crazy Calm, it's a juxtaposition, right? Crazy is the caffeine, the coffee, and calm is the CBD. So a relaxing energy.
Yeah, fair enough. So I forgot my question there. For Crazy Calm, how like what kind of crypto do you accept for that, and what was kind of the process for getting all of that set up for crypto payments?
Sure. So it was very easy with Coinbase Commerce. We initially launched with BCH, BTC, Ethereum, and Litecoin. We recently added DAI because Coinbase Commerce had it there. I find DAI to be interesting, although I have my own reservations about it, just because it's such a difficult thing to create a like a decentralized stablecoin and essentially Federal Reserve type bank running it. But we also had the Nano community reach out, and so some people from Nano have purchased it. I would say that we are crypto agnostic as long as we know we'll have the liquidity if we need to cash it out. But the Coinbase Commerce plugin is so well done that's kind of the main determinant right now. And if we'll add another plugin for other cryptocurrency, we want to make sure that the community's big and it has enough volume.
Yeah, makes sense. So I guess people who are trying to do the same thing, that's probably their best go-to plugin.
So here's what I would say. I would say maybe. I actually wrote a guide, Bitcoin for business owners, that I can link you to. But it depends. Like BitPay is very interesting if you want to be able to cash out. It's a little bit more difficult in Canada, but you sometimes can do it. Actually, I don't know if you can do it in Canada, but in US. But for crypto related or for CBD related companies, they don't allow them to be on their platform. But if there's someone who wants zero risk or they want to just keep 10% in crypto, BitPay, if you get approved, is maybe the best bet. And I think they have Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum now. But if you want to have like a non-custodial where you hold your funds, anyone can use it anywhere in the world. Coinbase Commerce for sure. Like it's not. People think Coinbase Commerce and they think it's going to be a custodial wallet, but that's not the case. They don't hold your keys. You hold the keys to the wallet.
Awesome. I remember what I was going to ask you before. For Crazy Calm, how does the like is it an instant like a bag of coffee, or is it like a Keurig cup, or like what does the actual product look like for the instant coffee?
Yeah, well, should I grab something and just show it to you real quick?
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Okay, 1 second. Okay, so check it out. So this is the box. Each box, can you see it? Each box comes with 10 sachets. I'll just take out one, and you can see the sachet here.
Okay.
It's a CBD. It's not CBD oil. A lot of people think it's CBD oil. This is a water-soluble CBD powder mixed with instant coffee, and you can mix it with hot or cold water, and you're ready to go.
Awesome.
And check it out, man. We even published. You can see the cryptocurrencies there. On the box, we accept crypto.
Nice.
We're not hiding that we accept crypto.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, are you planning to maybe ever get into having like those like instant little cups or anything like that, where you like put them in like a Keurig or like I think the other one's called Tassimo. I think so.
Yeah, I don't know if we do Keurig cups. Maybe I think instant coffee. Maybe we would do a ground coffee in the future, but we're just trying to focus on one product for now. Because as you know, man, it's once you add a new product, there's on the supply chain and the production, there's so much complexity. But I think we'll probably stick with instant coffee for the foreseeable future. Awesome.
All right. Well, I don't know what else to ask about CrazyCom. I mean, you kind of dove into it a little bit. For Bitcoin Cash House, I'm really curious about how did that all get started, and what was your involvement in that program, and just for people who don't know anything about it, if you want to give an introduction to that.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, I was running Latin American efforts for Bitcoin.com, and so there's Telegram is amazing. I'm sure you're probably on Telegram, Scott, and the community there, and so just people from all over South America, just contacting them. Sometimes they want to run a meetup. And there was a guy named Roberto Garcia, or there was, he's still alive. Roberto Garcia, he reached out to me, a young guy, I mean, he's probably like 23, 24. And he said, hey, there's this entrepreneurial conference here in Venezuela. Do you want to sponsor it? You as in Bitcoin.com. And so we sponsored that. They had a stand there and they were promoting the wallet, giving away some free Bitcoin Cash, and teaching people how to use it to send remittance payments, which is a pretty big thing. Remittance payments is just a fancy word for sending money to your family when you're working abroad or in other countries. One of the key use cases for crypto. And so we developed a relationship. He was running a meetup in Barquisimeto, Venezuela. And he reached out to me one day and he's like, hey, man, I want to open a store and like sell Bitcoin.com swag. And I was like, yeah, because we had sent down swag, like t-shirts, things like that, and stickers. I was like, that seems okay. Maybe people will be interested in that, but why not create kind of maybe a co-working space / office, but a place where people can come and learn, an education center about Bitcoin Cash, host meetups, a place for people developers to go to learn how to build on top of Bitcoin Cash and make a hub. And and he took it from there, and he got an investment from Bitcoin.com, a small investment, and also sponsored by Sideshift.a, which is Sideshift.ai, which is a kind of a no KYC shapeshift. Anyway, so with those two sponsors in hand, he's got the office space. He's running events, working on a developer hub so people can learn to how to develop on Bitcoin Cash. And that was the first one. And after seeing that, people in Ghana and other countries in Africa reached out. And then now there's one called Bitcoin Cash House Ghana. But the whole idea is there's not strict rules for a Bitcoin Cash House. This is not like a McDonald's franchise. And why is that? Because each country has specific needs and tastes when it comes to crypto, right? Maybe some places already have very good mobile payments for mobile money, but domestically, but they need to send it internationally. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't have access to credit card processors, or they're very expensive and charge 6%, like a place like Venezuela. So basically creating an education hub and adapting it to the needs of the country. And then the idea is to have multiple education hubs where people can learn and learn about crypto and interact and kind of spread the word. But having and understanding another thing I like to add, Scott, I know this is a long answer, but another thing that's very important is the lack of trust in developing world countries, where the government's going to be more corrupt, people are more skeptical, there's more scams as an aggregate, right? And so the importance of having a physical space, and this doesn't have to be for Bitcoin Cash, this can be crypto agnostic. That's how in New York, right, there was like the Bitcoin Center in New York, that was like the first spot, right? But I encourage anyone listening to look into starting a physical space, because I think if we had thousands or tens of thousands around the world, that is going to be one of the best ways to get mass adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned before we jumped onto this call that having that in-person interaction is the most important to actually, help people learn. So do you want to talk a little bit more about forming like physical spaces and why it's so important? Like, I know you already touched on it a bit, but just diving in a little bit more as to why it's so important and the difference it makes compared to just trying to learn online, or how you mentioned earlier, actually like talking to someone in person and helping them get you set up.
Okay, yeah. So first off, I would say that depending on the country or even the state, when it comes to the United States and other parts, the regulatory framework can be challenging, right? I mean, if New York, it's going to be almost impossible to do that unless you have millions upon millions of dollars. And each country has its own idiosyncrasies and permits and things that must be considered. The operating activity, it looks like in Ghana, it's a pretty open market that you can freely buy and sell there, while other places it might have to be an education center, and then maybe people can buy and sell between them, but it can't officially be a place where you can buy and sell crypto. So I think first off, it's worth looking into exactly what you can and can't do. But to go on the importance, I think it's a great way to, if you want to run a business, I mean, this can be a for-profit enterprise, and that's the idea. If you started where you are in Canada or wherever you want to do it, and you start, it's a great way to build a community and become a trust. And once you build the trust, this as a content creator, once you build the trust and you have a community that comes there, business opportunities are going to arise 100%. And so I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's important. What else? Yeah, I mean, there's people that have heard of Bitcoin, but they don't know exactly what it is. But when they can come in and have a coffee or a beer, and we're actually in a couple kind of crypto hubs in the U.S. Or Crazy Column, whatever, and talk about Bitcoin, it brings a whole other element. Going to these in-person meetups and gatherings. I guess I'm rambling a bit here, Scott, but that's it. Going to these in-person meetups and gatherings and being able to then connect to other centers, there are a million possibilities of things you can do there.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that you mentioned there was the different regulations. So like if you were going to try to learn from someone in Canada or something, we have completely different regulations for ICOs than in the United States. And the regulations are so different that it really helps to see someone in person and actually talk with someone who knows all of the regulations and everything in your in wherever you're located. So I think that's a pretty good.
Well, Scott, I have one more thing. And so
Yeah.
going back to this overarching theme of using cryptocurrency, if you want to be a little bit, kind of, I'd say a sobering look at the world of cryptocurrency and how difficult regulation is, try to start a physical location wherever you are. And you're most likely to run into a lot of difficulties when it comes to bank accounts. You may have bank accounts get shut down, et cetera, et cetera. So when people are like, oh, like crypto is inevitable, it's going to take over everything. When you try to, register a business and then do something with cryptocurrency, you'll see how difficult it is, and you will get bank accounts shut down, things like that. And that is a reminder of how difficult this process for cryptocurrency to find its place in the world is. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, and I guess most people don't see those boundaries until you actually try to do it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to dive in a little bit into your time at Bitcoin.com. You've interviewed a ton of people. Do you want to just kind of give a little bit of like a summary or what some of your thoughts and feelings were of your entirety there, and maybe share a story or two?
Yeah. So I had been podcasting before. I had a food podcast that I ended up selling right when I started the Bitcoin.com podcast network. And I even had a hobby crypto podcast, which is actually how I interviewed Roger Ver to start. But building a podcast network, wow. I mean, I started, for timing, the first episode I think went live January 2nd, 2018. So literally, since I started podcasting, the price just kind of went down for those 2 years. But I focused on building a network of shows where we had multiple shows. We had 4 shows, and the fourth one was in Spanish because I wanted to hit the kind of Latino audience, because there's not a lot of quality content in Spanish, and it's tough for people to have to read English always to get the best content. But we had a news show, This Week in Bitcoin, Calle Bitcoin, the show in Spanish, Blockchain 2025, which is the show on blockchain that I did with a number of co-hosts, and then Humans of Bitcoin, which was the flagship show, which was just telling human stories. And there was a theme to make it accessible to beginners, because Bitcoin.com, if you search for Bitcoin in Google, it's going to come up, number 2, number 4, it's going to be right there. And podcasting is popular, so the thought process behind that is, okay, well, they're into Bitcoin, they see the word podcast, and they click on that on Bitcoin.com. We don't want to, while it can have intellectual conversations that are interesting to people that are in the space for a long time, we want to make sure that we're accessible to beginners and not get them lost in lingo, because the whole idea of Bitcoin.com is to onboard as many people as possible to the cryptocurrency ecosystem. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, doing live interviews, a couple interviews with John McAfee, just a lot of very interesting personalities, and having these conversations. I was honored to be able to speak with them. And I think a lot about osmosis, because people are like, well, what did you learn? It's hard to say I learned X, Y, and Z, but just having these conversations over time, things start to rub off on your way of thinking. And you get interesting anecdotes in every episode that hopefully can help, mold your thinking in a very unknown and emerging space like cryptocurrency, where it's extremely difficult to understand where everything is going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, like with what I do, I think it's really important to focus on, like you said, with the humans of Bitcoin, it's really about the stories, and it's not so much about like investing. I feel like a lot of the podcasts and channels out there are already just talking about mainly investing. So it's good that there's content out there for people to like learn and, gain that insight. And like you said, it's more for like anyone who's interested in crypto, not just for more experienced people. So I think that's really, really important. That's kind of what I try to do as well with my channel, where it's very easy to understand, and it's for anyone, but also accessible for new people getting in. And it's funny that you mentioned that you started like right after the crash, because that's kind of right around when I started. I started off by getting in just before the crash, unfortunately, investing a bunch, losing a bunch, and then realizing that I'm probably not the greatest at investing, but maybe I should try my hand at just like looking into the technology and seeing what's all out there. And then that kind of started my journey. So like who were some of your favorite people to talk to? I mean, not that I want you to like pick and choose favorites, but like what were some of the like really interesting conversations that you had that you can recall and were just, like notable to you?
Sure. So I really enjoyed my conversation with Evan Ratliff, and going to your point that like stories, he wrote a book, which is probably maybe the best book I've read in the last 12 months, called Mastermind. And that's about Paul LaRue, who, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Breaking Bad before. Mm-hmm. This is like international Breaking Bad type character, where it's like this evil genius who started bringing in, or he started doing the online pharmacies in the US and Canada, I think mostly in the US, and selling them, and made hundreds of millions of dollars. And that turned into doing meth deals with North Korea, trafficking arms to Iran. Just an incredible story, true story, who's now in jail right now. But there was rumored that he was Satoshi. Whether or not he's Satoshi, I don't know, but there's a compelling case for it. But he is a genius cryptographer and has been involved in the cryptography community for a long time. And so I read his book, and I interviewed him about the making of the book. And I think it's going to be turned, or he sold the movie rights, so it'll be a movie soon, or maybe a TV series, I can't remember. But the point was, it's just having a conversation with people that are kind of outside the Bitcoin space. It's like a Wired magazine guy, and getting a up close view on a person that's you can't even find photos of this guy online, Paul LaRue. There might be one photo when he was detained, but that was a really, really interesting one. Patrick Byrne of Overstock and Medici Ventures. He's since gone. I don't know. I think he had this whole like Russian spy drama. A lot of people that were like mired in controversy would either have it before or after coming on the show. Coincidentally, who else? Eric Voorhees came on twice. I finished off with Eric because he didn't. He's one of the people I look up to and admire in the cryptocurrency space. But yeah, those are some of the names that come to mind, and there's a lot of great episodes. It's just hard for me to recall all of them kind of on the spot. Yeah.
No, I mean, like you said earlier, it's hard to pick and choose anecdotes. It's kind of just like you learn a little bit with each episode that you do. So those were kind of all of the questions that I had for those specific topics. For CrazyCom, actually, where do you see it going in the next like year, and then maybe the next 5 years, like in the most ideal sense?
Oh, okay. Well, man, the most ideal sense,
yeah, because it's hard to tell with crypto and everything where everything's going. So I guess just if everything worked out perfectly, I guess.
Okay, that's a great question. If everything worked out perfectly. Again, and just, CBD and cannabis, I mean, this here in Canada is a big regulatory, there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty in the cannabis space as well, right? So visualizing, a year and 5 years from now, being able to share relaxing energy products, whether that's CBD coffee or, other types of things that provide relaxing energy and allowing people to do that throughout the United States. I would like to get in many stores and have, an assortment of products that can fit as many people as possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's a simple goal, and hopefully you can achieve it, right? I mean, it's not simple, but I mean, it's simply said, very to the point. So I'd like to get some of your opinions on like some of the dApps that are out there, because a lot of what I dive into is social media dApps, and I know you're familiar with several. So like what are some of your thoughts on some of the current social media applications that are out there that have crypto monetization or are using blockchain?
Sure. And so I'm going to get to that, but I want to address some of that. You made a very good point earlier. Like when I ran the Bitcoin.com podcast network, and there are like maybe 300 cryptocurrency podcasts, Kraken, The Block, CoinDesk, everyone has a podcast, right? So it's very important whether it's a podcast or YouTube channel. And I would say, I think YouTube channel, if you're going to monetize, maybe the easier route like you're doing. You have to have, it's got to be about something that's unique. And I love that you're focusing on the decentralized social media platforms. So I just kudos to you. And I think that's a great space to stay in and kind of brand around. I haven't tried all of the platforms. So, I know DLive is out there. I've looked at it a little bit. Library, I've looked at it a little bit. But I haven't used them that much. I can say I really like read.cash, RAAD.cash, because to me, the usability, UI, UX, it's better than Medium. I'm connected to the Bitcoin Cash community, so I have a huge bias there, but I find some good stuff on there. Besides that, I personally thought that Steemit was like a pretty centralized it's like a centralized company. That was my take, and I was always why do they have 3 tokens? I know you can explain that, but so I never really got into Steemit, but I'm for all types of alternative publishing and kind of just seeing the way the market plays out. But the one that I would encourage people to check out is READ.cash.
Yeah, and I only recently got on there, but it's definitely a really, really interesting platform. And yeah, like you said, it's very similar to Medium, but it might even be a little bit better because you also don't have to be limited to just 5 articles a day unless you pay, right? So that's one major improvement right there. But yeah, no, I mean with Steemit actually, they were just thing? Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to tie everything we talked about. So you mentioned that, and we talked about the Bitcoin Cash House. Literally, the Bitcoin Cash House Ghana needed to raise a little bit of money. I don't know, maybe it was like $75, and they just posted what they were doing and where they wanted to go with it on read.cash, and they raised the money that way. So I won't say ICO because they raised funds. They crowdfunding just with one post on read.cash. I realize that can be done other places too, but just that kind of ties together what we're talking about, the power of these communities connecting and people, someone from Africa or South America just post and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and being able to raise funds instantly. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like the power behind being able to fund different projects, donate to charity, all these amazing different things that you can do with social media applications is just phenomenal. Yeah. And I was just going to say that Steemit was actually just bought by Tron. So I'm hoping that they kind of decentralize it more and just improve upon some of the things that that they didn't really build out very much, because they felt like they were stuck in like a beta limbo for so long, because it's been around for maybe almost 4 years now, and it never really changed. Like the UI never really changed, not a whole lot changed, and it's only been owned by Tron for a little over a week, and they've already updated a bunch of things. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out. So I'm surprised that you never got into Steemit. Was it just like because that was kind of like the original social media dApp. Was it just not like was it just too confusing with all the different coins, or like what was the barrier of entry? I know there's also like an approval process, so that's kind of a barrier of entry as well. But what were your thoughts there?
Honestly, it had nothing to do with Steemit. The barrier to entry was time, because I was exploring so many blockchain projects at once, and it's just, there's like, someone would say, oh, you should check out X community, the Decred community, and just not having enough hours in the day or focus really to be able to evaluate so many projects at once. But I also think it was by Dan Larimer, right? Originally, he created it, Steemit. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because he started,
Well, he created Steam, not Steam It. Steam It is just like one of the interfaces. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got you. He created Steam and then BitShares and then later EOS, right?
Yeah.
And so, he has this reputation for being brilliant, but moving quickly between projects. So a risk of that, right? Being able to create all these things and, a mastermind like he has is perhaps that if you pass it off and leave the project, when may not necessarily, like I realize he didn't create Steam It, but creating Steam, it's nice having some insight from Dan Larimer if you're the Steam It team, and maybe they didn't have that because he was focused on EOS.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And speaking of EOS, like they just launched Voice on Valentine's Day, which is supposed to be their DApp killer of all DApps, but I don't know. I mean, it's not available in Canada yet, but I'll be curious to see how that goes. People have been kind of skeptical because it requires KYC, whereas the majority of social platforms right now don't. So that's a pretty big barrier of entry. And I don't know. It's a very unique project, though. Like you can't buy their token; you can only earn it. So, I mean, like they definitely have a unique value proposition with Voice, but I mean, I don't know fully yet until I'm actually able to go on and try it out. But my concerns with EOS was that there's so much congestion on the chain. Like they had to use a private chain for Voice, but yeah, I mean, like because EOS was supposed to be the like enterprise chain, but right. I feel like Ethereum's really taken that role in the space. Like what are your thoughts on that between like EOS and Ethereum being enterprise level chains?
Well, okay, here's what I would say. I think Ethereum Ethereum alone, really, they have contributed so much to humanity in the world because this is a very difficult experiment. It seems that this Ethereum 2.0 thing is a very difficult transition. It may not work out, but that culture and community they brought to crypto is a great contribution to the world, whether or not Ethereum works out or not. EOS, I think wasn't like a couple days ago, Scott. They published, maybe it was a tweet or a blog post, and they made like 17 changes to the protocol because there were some congestion issues, and it just shows how centralized it is. Have I put in hours upon hours of reading about EOS? No, but my 30,000 foot view, amateur view of EOS is not something that I'm that excited about, but I could be missing something. And maybe, I mean, they do have a lot of money, right? Their ICO raised a ton of money and they're sitting on quite a bit of money. So maybe that's the best way to roll out a social network. And maybe to have success, you have to start out more centralized and then kind of decentralize it as it moves along. I mean, MakerDAO and Ethereum is doing that. They're pretty centralized right now, right? The Maker token is held by like 4 VC firms, and they're trying to distribute it. But so that's my take. I mean, I'm more excited about Ethereum than comparatively to EOS. I've never really dug deep into that system, but I would be curious to take a look at Voice and see what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you'd actually be able to get on and check it out. I'm still waiting for the beta to make its way here, but yeah, I mean, like I know you're more of a fan of like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. What are some other, like, do you know of any other applications that exist on Bitcoin Cash? Like I know there's Memo Cash, but I prefer read.cash to memo.cash, since memo.cash you have to spend BCH for everything you do, like commenting. And like I felt like that was too much of a barrier of resistance. Like for me, it's like if someone from Twitter was going to join this platform, that's kind of the way that I look at it. Would they be willing to spend money every time they commented or replied or, did something? And I would say probably not. Like they're going to a social media platform to earn money, because that's kind of the value proposition, rather than actually spend money. I understand that it like deters, spam and bots and all that. But I just don't know if that's quite enough of a value proposition. And that's why I really like read.cash, because they're probably one of the better BCH platforms out there. But I do know there's like, yeah, probably the best. Yeah, but I know there's some other ones, but I don't know if you might know better than I do.
I honestly, I mean, those two are the ones that I think about. Memo.cash, I think a lot. If like, let's say you wanted to place a bet, right? You're like, oh, like the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to win the Stanley Cup in 2024. That's not a great example, but like maybe by the year 2024, something crazy is going to happen. Like to easily encode like a prediction on a blockchain and like reference it. Memo.cash would be, good for that. I mean, you could also use like there's like a notary service for the Bitcoin Cash blockchain as well. But yeah, I think you're right on that. That to bring like a mainstream adoption to Memo.cash does not seem likely. It's there's a two-sided coin there, having to pay for everything. I'm very bullish on Read.cash as a platform to find really good content, and I'm going to start publishing content on Read.cash, hopefully, or in like a couple weeks.
Awesome. Well, I'll be looking out for your content there. So I mean, yeah, that's a lot of the topics that I wanted to cover. Is there anything else that you wanted to dive into before we end this off?
No, well, Scott, I just wanted to thank you and for you. I mean, I got to ask you, man. I want to turn this interview around on you really quick. I mean,
Sure.
You've looked at what, like 50, 100 kind of social media platforms, and what what do you think has the best chance of we'll say global adoption?
So for my comprehensive review that I'm working on right now, I've got maybe like 4 top recommendations, and then I've got like secondary recommendations and tertiary recommendations, and then just things that I don't recommend. So in all of my recommendations, there's probably like 15, but in my top recommendations, because I think realistically, most people are only looking at joining 1 or 2 platforms. I would say PublishOX, because they're crypto agnostic and it's really, really easy to get started and to earn on there. I would say Steam, like any of the platforms on Steam, because there's a lot. There's like DTube, which is like decentralized YouTube. There's AppPix, which is like basically Steam Instagram, and then you have Steemit. But that will be moving to, well, I actually don't know what Tron's going to do with Steemit, so that's kind of a wild card. But I have earned the most on Steam, so for people who are looking for like profitability, not that should be your main focus, but obviously it's a pretty attractive value proposition. I would say Steemit and other dApps on Steam is a really, really good place to look for that. I would say, even though it's not a social dApp, Brave Browser is just like a really, really cool platform for you to like earn on. And if you're a creator, you can get signed up there as well. And something that's really, really interesting is like most people block ads with like some sort of ad blocker. And with Brave Browser, it'll automatically do that, but then you can enable ads and then you can earn cryptocurrency, as well as for creators, they can also get tips, and you can auto contribute and things like that. So if someone's a Brave Browser creator and they're on YouTube and you watch their video, you could auto contribute to them. So I think that's a really, really cool way for everyone to kind of have a win-win situation. A couple more dApps that I really, really like. Library definitely is going to be one of the really, really big up and comers this year. I think just insane amount of growth on that platform. The token has actually gone up a lot lately. There's a lot of people using it, and they just give a lot of different ways for people to earn. Like if you come from YouTube, they'll actually pay out monthly just for you syncing your YouTube. If you have at least 1,000 followers or more, you'll earn they'll pay out monthly just for existing on the platform. You don't even have to post or do anything, but you'll receive a monthly payment from them just for being on the platform. And that's, outside of, you'll get a certain amount for however many followers you get, and for every view you get a certain amount. So they do a really, really good job of monetizing for that platform. So I think the most important thing is that creators are struggling on YouTube and all these platforms. Like even myself, like I've only got like 1,700 subscribers on YouTube. It's going to take me a very long time before I ever see any kind of, like reward or monetization or anything like that for all my efforts. And I've got about like 264 episodes, I think, right now. And, I haven't seen any money for that. But on the crypto side of things, I get like a few $100s a month. And while again, like that's not crazy for someone who is creating, that's a huge motivator to keep going. And it's just like having any amount of money coming in is just really, really cool to see that. And to know that your content actually does have value. And it was really just YouTube and all these legacy platforms that were preventing people from seeing that their content actually does have a lot more value and that they can take advantage of that with crypto platforms. But when I release the review, people can see all the other dApps that I recommend, because there's definitely a lot. I probably post on like 15 when I go to post. I've got like 15 different ones, because there's ones where I would just post, like a quick little like a Twitter type post, and then there's ones that are like video hosting dApps, and then there's the read.cash and publish.ox, which is more like blogging.
Yeah, there's so many different types, and there's like I think maybe read.cash will have this, but there's like a way to a decentralized Patreon is pretty important, because I know Patreon's had there's so many opportunities in this space. And you made a great point about making people aware of the value they have, even though they haven't earned money on YouTube. Like what is it, like if you have a million views on YouTube is what, $2,000 somewhere
something
around there?
Like that.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, 1 million views and you're only getting $2,000. I mean, to think that you're going to get let's say you want to get $5,000 a month. That's roughly, we could be off on the numbers here, but 2.5 million views a month. That is hard. That's a lot of work, a lot of competition to get there, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people today, like some of my favorite creators, like Tim Pool, amazing journalist.
Right.
A lot of his videos will be demonetized. And then by the time he remonetizes them, it's been like, it usually takes around 24 hours to get through that process of remonetizing. And by the time he actually monetizes his videos, people have already watched the majority of what they'll watch for that video, because he does daily news. So people already watched it. And by the time he's monetized, 90% of the views have already happened. And then, so even people who are doing really well aren't actually getting paid either. So ironically, he's actually a big like he encourages people to use crypto, and he's actually like the top followed account on minds.com, which is an Ethereum based platform. And Patrick Byrne actually invested in minds.com. So that's pretty interesting, because you mentioned that you interviewed him. And I mean, it's just really, really interesting, and seeing these bigger people who are actually starting to promote it. And Bill Ottman, the CEO of Minds, was on Joe Rogan's podcast. So cool. Like there's definitely like a lot more mainstream people starting to join these spaces, and I think it's really awesome to see, and we need more people in the crypto social ecosystems.
I'd like to add something there. So I'm a note to self, check out Bill Ottman, Joe Rogan podcast, and like minds.com. I'd heard of it, obviously, because the name is catchy, but I never looked at it. But so I use Brave. I'm using on my phone on Android, and on my PC, I always use Brave browser. I agree with everything you said, except one thing that I'm not sure about. So I find it just a superior browser to Chrome. But here's where I'm a little bit confused, Scott. So there's using Brave as a web browser, which I'm 100% sold, but then there's Brave, like the token, and then publishing platform. So what Brave is doing is basically they have websites, right, where you're going to someone's website and you're blocking their ads, and then Brave's placing their own ads. So like I wonder, do you see where I'm coming from? So
like I see the issue like that you're mentioning, but here's the thing. People, I think it was like 70+% of people block ads anyways, right? Okay. So the value proposition of Brave is that regardless, people are going to block your ads, but if you sign up as a Brave creator, now people are going to view ads, and you're still going to get something out of it as a creator who've signed up. So that means the advertiser, the publisher, and the user, it's a win-win-win for everyone. And that's kind of their value proposition. And right now they've got about just under 500,000 publishers, which is pretty impressive. If you go on batgrowth.com, you can see in real time that number going up. Because right now they do YouTube, Twitch, like just regular websites. I think, what else do they do? Twitter and maybe a few other things, but those are like their main ones. And yeah, like people are gonna block ads regardless. So it's a much better value proposition where everyone still gets a little bit of a piece of the pie. But I do see what you mean. Like if you're just hosting your own website and people are coming on and blocking your ads, and then
Brave's making money from it.
Yeah, and you're not signed up with Brave, that's where you kind of lose out. But because it's really easy and free, I would recommend that anyone should check out signing up.
Oh yeah, I just always, because I'm so bullish towards anything crypto, I always try to play the devil's advocate and find where there could be a problem. Like what am I missing? That's the only thing I'd say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because like obviously don't blindly trust anything just because it's crypto, right? I think that's also like a problem in the space where people think, oh, like it's crypto, it must be decentralized or it must be censorship resistant. But you really got to make sure that you check off all the boxes before you give it the all good, like all green, all good to go. Because it's like, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, DLive, they're not as like, they don't have a lot of the values that you would assume that a blockchain platform would. They've migrated twice and kind of like abandoned their previous communities. They were just bought by Tron as well. Ironically, Tron's been doing a lot of acquiring.
Tron makes moves.
Big. Yeah, like I think this is gonna be a big year for Tron actually, because they're acquiring all these like top social dApps, and then they've also got BitTorrent. So they've got a lot going on, and I'm really curious to see how this is all going to play out. But DLive has been kind of sketchy. I mean, I've made a million videos as to why people should be a little, like should really look into DLive before because I think a lot of the people going on DLive are coming from Twitch, because PewDiePie streams on DLive. So that's a huge, like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, if PewDiePie's on there, like I should get on there. But they're not very crypto focused or like blockchain savvy, so I don't think they realize that the current iteration of DLive is barely a blockchain, and it kind of goes against a lot of the motivations that you would assume a blockchain would have. And I'm hoping that Tron is going to fix a lot of that. So we'll have to see. But like this is its third blockchain migration. So, and again, they did kind of like leave the last two communities hanging when they left. So I'm curious to see as how this is all going to play out. But yeah, people definitely need to be skeptical when looking at different platforms. That's another reason why I'm doing my big review, because I think people are like, they don't know where to go, right? A lot of people don't even know certain platforms exist. And then in other cases, they don't know what's, like a safe platform, or like there's been a lot of platforms too that have either like exit scammed or just like shut down.
Right.
Narrative is a great example. So I was on Narrative and I paid to certify myself on the platform or get verified, and then they shut down like 2 weeks later. Wow. And it was crazy because they'd raised like millions of dollars in their ICO, and then they only lasted 1 year. And they only gave out, I believe, $1,500 worth of rewards to the users. So people are wondering, it's like, well, where did all the money go, and why did you guys shut down? They didn't really answer. They just kind of shut down. So, you've got to be skeptical of these things, and also just kind of be aware what's happening in the space, and look into these things, because when there's platforms that are, asking you to pay to verify and stuff, I always get very skeptical of that now. When you have to pay to verify, and there's just certain things that you should be on the lookout for. I've also made like a list, like I did a blog post and a video of things that you should look out for when you're looking at new blockchain platforms, to know if it's gonna, kind of check off all those boxes or not. But yeah, it's definitely something to be on the lookout for.
I'm excited for your mega blog post. I think it's going to serve a lot to the community, man.
Yeah, you should, if you are curious. I do them every 3 months, so you could look at my previous one. I probably looked at about 100 platforms at that time. Wow. It's definitely changed pretty drastically since. Right now, I think it's 129 platforms or 128. But yeah, it's I've got them all organized into different categories as to like why I wouldn't recommend this, or like top recommendations, or like why these didn't make top recommendations. It's very well organized so that people could even just use it as a directory for like all the platforms that exist currently. Obviously not in real time, but pretty close to it, because again, I try to do these every like 3 months or so that they're as up to date as possible.
Yeah, and if your platform, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to me that how much it can change in 3 months. That's cool.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. Like the difference from the last one to the one that I'm about to put out. Yeah, it changes pretty drastically. And yeah, I mean, you just got to kind of keep up with these platforms and see what's going on. And I mean, like I said, I post to about 15 almost daily, so it's definitely a hassle. I don't expect anyone to even get close to that amount, but that's kind of why I do these reviews, to show people like what is out there that they could look for, and what they could take advantage of.
Cool. Wow, awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we've almost been talking for an hour now, so I won't take up any more of your time. I really appreciate you jumping on, though. Is there anything else you wanted to quickly touch on before we end this off?
No, Scott, it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed. I think you got a lot of good content here, especially well, basically you educating me on our discussion on the social media publishing platforms was quite interesting. So I really enjoyed our conversation, man. And thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you coming on as well. If you want, I can send you a link to the previous one if you're curious at looking at some of the different platforms that are out there right now. But yeah, no, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing some insight with the Crazy Com and what you did at Bitcoin Cash House, and your experience with Bitcoin.com podcast. Really, really awesome. And I hope people learn from this, and maybe they check out some of the stuff you've done. Check out your coffee if people are into CBD coffee. Definitely check out Crazy Com. I might even order some. Is it international? Like, can I order in Canada yet, or what is
it's a little bit of a gray area. Let me think about that, because we sent a little bit to Canada, but we try to be careful there. But US for sure. But yeah, I mean, anyone from Canada reach out to me, and especially in the US, where you can order 100% without any issues.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we can maybe do a follow-up chat in the future.
Sounds great. I'd be up for it.
Awesome. All right. Cheers.
Cheers, man.